Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. At least I can still claim to have my dignity, Your Honor. I heard my lawyer quietly hiss, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw him staring at me with intense focus. I thought someone with his exorbitant hourly rate might exhibit a bit more self-control. He had warned me, no, practically begged me not to use that phrase again, arguing that it could cost us the sympathy of the public. Public sympathy, it seemed, played a significant role in influencing judges to give lighter sentences. But there was something my dear lawyer didn't know. From my position at the defendant's table, shackled and all, I had a better view of the judge than he did. I noticed how the judge quickly hid a smile the first time I said it. That smile, combined with a quick glance at the victim of my assault, who was sitting angrily beside his lawyer, told me everything I needed to know. I had a feeling the judge didn't think much of that guy either. "May I speak with my client again, Your Honor?" my lawyer asked. "I doubt it will do much good," the judge replied. "Mr. Perkins, your last three words didn't seem to help him." This time, the judge grinned openly at me while my lawyer leaned in to whisper something I didn't like. I couldn't stand that man. I was a practical guy and he was an arrogant jerk. I preferred dealing with what's right in front of me, not what I'm handed, and he was nothing but condescending trash. If I had the option, I wouldn't have hired him, but the choice wasn't mine. He was there because of my best friend, Dave. Was Dave rich enough to waste a fortune on my hopeless defense? No. Dave lived comfortably, but wasn't living in luxury, much like I used to before I was locked up 8 months ago. No, my outrageously expensive lawyer was being paid through a GoFundMe account, organized by Dave, which had a surprising number of donors. Apparently, many people didn't like my victim either. When news of my GoFundMe's success spread, my victim made a point to launch his own. It turned out to have consequences for him, though. It seemed that provoking me didn't make him many fans. As for me, I seemed to be quite popular, at least judging by the fan mail I was getting. And I had the guts to match it. After one more plea from my lawyer to avoid the provocative phrase, he returned to his spot, and we both turned back to face the judge. "Mr. Freeland, your lawyer is correct. Your victim deserves more sympathy and respect than you're showing him." Once again, the judge's eyes met mine in a way that contradicted his words, something only I could see due to my proximity and angle. "I apologize, Your Honor. I thought I was just stating the facts. I have testicles, but the man I caught with my soon-to-be ex-wife does not. Unless, of course, he keeps them in a box." This time, the look the judge shot me made it clear I had gone too far, but it softened quickly. I decided to remain quiet. "So, Mr. Freeland, as I was saying, you pled guilty to assault causing bodily harm, which carries a maximum sentence of 8 years in prison." No, please don't repeat what you just said," I pleaded, glancing over at the prosecution table, where the bastard had turned red, though whether from anger or embarrassment, I couldn't say. "Thank you, Mr. Freeland. Your lawyer claims that at the time of the assault, you were temporarily insane and not fully responsible for your actions. A court-ordered psychiatric evaluation, however, suggests that you are as sane as anyone else, though the psychiatrist does note that temporary insanity can be an autonomous response to certain stimuli." The judge paused as he reviewed his notes. I remained silent for once, following my lawyer's advice and only responding to direct questions. "We've heard the victim's statement. So, before I pass sentence, Mr. Freeland, could you please look me in the eye and recount your story again?" "Of course, Your Honor," I replied. I glanced at the gallery where my wife was sitting. She quickly lowered her gaze. She hadn't been in the courtroom when this story was shared last, probably to avoid the discomfort. I suppose she hadn't expected it to come up again today. She must have been torn, I thought. Decisions. Should she bolt or stay to show me support? Hoping I might forgive her and take her back? Fat chance. She'd have to endure the shame of being caught cheating, all under the public spotlight, by herself. It all began when my wife, a few friends, and I were enjoying a quiet evening at the bar when some slob, excuse me, the so-called victim, walked up to my wife and asked her to dance. Since he didn't follow proper etiquette by asking me first, I wasn't happy, but I let it slide. She danced with him for 2 or 3 songs before returning to the table, and I thought everything was fine. That was until she disappeared a little later. Turns out she left with the man she'd been dancing with. I paused to steady myself. Even after all this time, the memory of my wife's betrayal still made my blood boil. I guess one of the psychiatrists was right when they said that deep pain always produces strong anger. He called anger a secondary emotion, saying it never stands alone. I suppose, if nothing else, I learned something during my time behind bars. Please continue, Mr. Freeland, the judge urged. Well, I figured he'd take her straight to his place, and some people knew where he lived, so I went directly there. Sure enough, his expensive car was parked in the garage. He and my wife must have been in a hurry because the garage door was open and the door to the house was unlocked. I didn't need to break in, Your Honor. I just walked right in. There was no mention of any damage in the police report, Mr. Freeland, the judge said, clearly not pleased. You'll have to forgive me, Your Honor. But from here on, my memory gets blurry. I remember getting angrier as I walked through the house, searching for them. Eventually, I heard grunting and moaning from what I assumed was a bedroom upstairs. That's all I recall until the police arrived. One moment I was at the foot of the stairs, the next they were there. I'm not sure if the images I remember from that 15-minute gap are real or if they came from what the police said happened. I tried my best to look confused while the judge examined me. Much of my lawyer's argument rested on the fact that I had signed a confession when I wasn't mentally stable. The police had made a mistake, and for a significant period, my whereabouts were unaccounted for. My lawyer suggested that I might have been interrogated off the record, with the police exploiting my mental state to plant a false memory, which I then accepted as reality and confessed to. Truth be told, of course, I remember every detail. From the moment I heard the sounds of sex from the bedroom, climbing the stairs, following the noise to the open door, and seeing my wife on all fours, naked as the day she was born, being taken by the bastard who had stolen her from me. The same guy I had seen dancing with her earlier. I don't know if it was madness, but something inside me snapped. Honestly, I don't think I should be blamed for what happened. The couple had no idea I was there, watching as their betrayal played out. She was moaning and screaming, encouraging him, destroying any hope I had that she might have been unwilling. At the sex party, I could tell his manhood was bigger than mine, and the thought that he was offering her something I could never give her pushed me into a blind rage. From that moment on, I knew I would always be inferior to him unless I did something to level the playing field, though I don't remember consciously deciding to act or not act. I only recall thinking that maybe I would always be a cuckold, and my masculinity would never match his, but at least I would still have my dignity. When I was younger, I played as a defender on my rugby team and often switched teams during practice, which allowed me to kick exactly where it counted with incredible force. That's exactly what I did. He reacted instantly, his movements almost comical. He lunged forward to escape the pain, twisting my ex-wife in the process, causing her to hit her head on the headboard, stunning her. Then he rolled off of her onto his back, his legs spread wide, gasping for breath as though he had been holding it in for an eternity. The pain hadn't fully registered yet because his dazed eyes shifted from his bruised groin to my self-satisfied smile. The terror on his face made me smile, no matter how long I had been locked up. Yes, Mr. Freeland, your lawyer has made that abundantly clear. I understand the police station in question has already put in place some significant changes in protocol. There's no doubt you were at the scene, and the fact that you administered first aid to the victim, something 3 witnesses confirmed, isn't entirely consistent with your usual character. The fact that your wife didn't witness you actually assaulting the victim is irrelevant to the case. There's no question that you caused the injury, which led to the victim's testicles needing to be surgically removed. The only issue at hand is your mental state during the assault. As I mentioned, the lawful sentence is 8 years in prison, although I am permitted to consider the provocation you experienced and the likely mental state you were in at the time. Regarding the deterrent aspect of sentencing, well, I doubt you will ever face such an emotional and frankly disgusting provocation again. With his last words, the judge shot a look of disdain and judgment at my wife, who shrank into her seat. I noticed that none of her friends were sitting next to her to offer support. From what I had heard in the safety of my cell, she didn't have many friends left. My case had made national headlines, First, because of the notoriety of my victim, then because of stories about certain celebrities using their fame to engage in immoral acts with little to no consequences, and third, because of the GoFundMe account. Apparently, some of the husbands who had previously been humiliated by my wife's lover were quite wealthy, and the donations quickly reached six figures before the general public even started contributing. My David versus Goliath story seemed to resonate with a lot of people, as thousands chipped in, often with more than just spare change. The massive size of the fund ensured its fame and kept me, along with my wife's wrongdoings, in the public eye and the forefront of our social circle. It became socially unacceptable to do anything but publicly shame her. I must have drifted into my thoughts because suddenly I heard applause in the courtroom. When the judge left, we all stood and I looked around to see people smiling at me and giving me thumbs up. I turned to my lawyer, confused. "What's going on?" "He ruled that you were temporarily insane." "You got lucky, man," he replied. "He sentenced you to probation and a 3-year suspended sentence. You're a free man." We shook hands and he made sure I was escorted out. My best friend shook my hand, patted me on the back, and leaned in to whisper, "I'm really glad you still have your balls, man." He led me, grinning wildly, along with my stern lawyer, through the back exit, avoiding the waiting reporters. Once outside, I thanked my lawyer and we parted ways. As I turned the corner at the courthouse steps, I glanced toward the main entrance and saw the swarm of reporters waiting for me. Although, given their nature, swarm might be a polite term for a pack of hyenas. My change into prison attire must have thrown them off, as none of them paid me any attention as I walked by. I noticed a small group of people gathered across the steps. Damn it, my victim was holding his own press conference with his lawyer. They were standing on the lower steps in front of a half-dozen cameras. As I approached, I overheard the former local celebrity, now publicly revealed as the scumbag he truly was, declare, "I vow to appeal today's ruling by the judge. This was a miscarriage of justice. Furthermore, I will file a civil lawsuit to clear my name because having sex with married women is not a crime." At first, one of the cameramen, then another, turned their cameras toward me. By the time I reached the former star, who was standing on the same level of the steps as me, half the cameras were pointed in my direction. The height and weight difference between us, he was nearly a foot taller and outweighed me by 50 kilos, became more obvious as I invaded his personal space. The bastard actually took a step back from me, tripped over his own feet, and landed on his backside. From the ground, I glanced at the camera lenses and realized how weak that made him appear. I gave him my best smile. Good luck with the appeal and civil suit. Whether I win or lose, I'm still sticking to my opinion. He turned bright red. "Screw you and screw you too, Mark Lavalier." The next day's local newspaper headlines were almost laughable. Some variations read, "Husband keeps his cool. Confident guy stands up to disgraced ex-pro football player." And even Lavalier loses his cool again. The buzz surrounding it caused my GoFundMe balance to keep rising, so I hired the best civil lawyer I could find, hoping he could lessen the damage from my eventual defeat. I waited for a month, then 2, but the expected lawsuit never materialized. Finally, one evening, I discovered why. I was quietly sipping a beer at a local bar on my way home when a large man approached me from behind. I knew he was big because his shadow covered me. He asked me not to turn around, then explained that he was part of a support group for wronged husbands. One of his group members had a chat with Lavalier, and as a result, he decided not to pursue a lawsuit against me. I didn't pry into why Lavalier reached that conclusion, but if the friends of my new mysterious ally were as large as him, I could easily imagine why. I offered to buy my new friend a beer, but he declined, so I simply thanked him and respected his wish to keep me facing the bar until he left. It's nice to have friends, even if you don't know them. Afterward, I followed Mark's career with interest. He was quietly pushed out of the major leagues, where he had once been a star, and ended up in the minors. According to the media, his income dropped by more than 90%. About a year later, he made the news again. It was one of those evening talk shows that interview former celebrities, and a friend recorded it for me. Lavalier continued whining, his voice noticeably higher pitched about how unfair it all was. He claimed he had lost his testicles and that his testosterone levels had dropped. He said he had lost muscle mass, drive, and aggression. This only added to the ridicule he faced every time he stepped onto the field. He was suspended for 2 games after an opponent allegedly whispered, "At least I still have my balls." Cameras captured Mark turning and slapping the guy. If he had punched him, it might have earned him some respect, but the slap only further ruined his reputation. Less than a month later, he was fired after being caught taking testosterone supplements, which were banned in professional sports as performance enhancers. After that, I lost track of him and only heard his name mentioned in conversations about the risks of marital infidelity. As for Linda, her situation wasn't much better. Her friends, family, and acquaintances quickly realized that siding with her would mean being dragged through the mud due to her disgrace. They fled, throwing dirt on her as they ran. The media didn't hold back when it came to exposing how she had betrayed me. She became the poster child for the bad wife, isolated from family and friends, hounded by the press and even by strangers in public. She tried to leave the area, but my family lawyer, who, as you might have guessed, is the best money can buy, made sure she couldn't take the kids far from me. In desperation, she turned to alcohol. One day when her children, left alone at home, called to tell me she had driven into the garage, through the sliding doors, and couldn't be woken up, I made sure the police got there before I did. I left the garage door open so the reporters could photograph the kids' play equipment next to where Linda usually parked her car. Her DUI arrest was just the final insult. My lawyer quickly convinced the judge that Linda was an unfit mother. He was savvy enough not to propose that custody be given to me, a convicted felon though. Instead, he suggested that my parents be given legal guardianship, thanks to the generous financial support I could provide them. The judge agreed readily. I had just moved in with my parents at the time. Linda's drinking problem only worsened, which caught the attention of social workers monitoring her visits with the kids. After a few months, she gave up and moved away. She sends them postcards for every birthday and Christmas, but they don't care. My fame, or rather my infamy, attracted a certain type of available woman, and things might have worked out if I were the type drawn to such women, but I wasn't. Eventually, I met an incredible woman. Actually, the word incredible doesn't truly capture her essence. I admire her deeply. She fled her country with her 2 young children after her sister and brother-in-law were killed early in the conflict. But most importantly, she loves me for who I am, not for my notoriety. So although late at night after we've played our little games of hide and seek, she sometimes whispers in my ear, "I'm glad you still have your balls, Jim." Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.